Hello friends, my name is Shayla and today I am here to give you some recommendations. So today I am doing this video in collaboration with Heather from over at Heabooktubes. I love Heather, she's one of my favorite humans, and I talked recently about how I want to collab with more people, so Heather's like, let's do this. So we looked at the lists that she had ready to go for the next little while, and this is the one we both decided on. And so today we are talking about non-conventional or non-traditional happily ever afters in books. So things are gonna look a little, like they still have like happiness at the end, but it's not like the epilogue where everybody's married and having babies kind of situation. So things are gonna feel a little bit different, and that's okay. I like it this way. So let's go ahead and dive into these recommendations. Also, Heather's linked in the cards and down below. Make sure you go give her a follow, because again, she's one of my favorite humans and she does tons of rec videos. So if you're looking for specific tropes, especially in romance anytime, like Heather's your go-to. All right, so let's get started. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Sabrina Valley series by Katie Robert. So book 1 is Abel and book 2 is Broderick. I've read both of these and I feel like their happily ever afters or happy for nows are very unconventional for a couple of reasons. One, we're dealing with thruples in both of these books. So obviously things are going to be less conventional just due to the nature of their relationships. And secondly, we're dealing with a large overarching story dealing with revenge on groups of people who were harmful to the Payne brothers. This is a Seven Brides for Seven Brothers style retelling, and it's amazing. I absolutely love this. But the way each book has wrapped up has been the couples have found their ways to each other and have decided they're going to try to make things work at least for this year. What happens after that, they'll decide kind of when they get to that point. But the two couplings that we've seen so far, it looks like they want it to work beyond the year. So that's kind of where we're at. But both of the endings felt less conventional. So I really wanted to bring up this series. Plus, I just love the series, so I just wanted an excuse to talk about it. Next, I'm going to talk about Radiance by Grace Draven. If you read it as a standalone, the ending to this story is very unconventional. We have a political marriage starting off this story, and the way things wrap up and end is just truly this growing from, reluctant friends to lovers, and it's beautifully done. Again, I don't feel like the ending to this one is super stereotypical, and that's part of why I loved Radiance. It does have a sequel book, but the sequel book is very fantasy, less romance, which is why I'm putting their kind of happily ever after situation here rather than after the next book, because I feel like their romance part kind of ends at the end of book 1. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because that is a little less conventional. I mean, we see it more in fantasy than we do in just traditional romance, but it's still worth mentioning. Next, I'm going to talk about An Incurable Case of Love by Maki and Joji. This is actually a 7-volume manga series. So in this series, we have two people. We have Sakura, who sees this man named Dr. Tendo rescue this old woman, so it inspires her to become a nurse so that she can work in close proximity to Dr. Tendo. She wants to work at the hospital that he works at, but when she goes and meets him on her first day of work, he's a curmudgeon-y man and he doesn't even remember her, and it's about them falling in love. And it's a really great series. I think it's really well done. There are some traditional tropes that usually happen in manga that I don't feel like really happened in this one. There's a bonus chapter at the end where they have a more formal wedding kind of situation, but for how manga typically goes in an epilogue or bonus chapter, I think this one was really well done and it stands out to me. Considering the amount of manga that I read, I think it's really interesting to find an ending that stands out, because a lot of them end very much the same. So having this one stand out was great. Really loved it. So I am going to mention another manga series, and that is The Demon Prince of Momochi House. This is a 16-volume manga series, so this one is a bit more of a commitment. So we have Himari. Himari inherits Momochi House on her 16th birthday. It's this big house up on the mountain. She goes to enter Momochi House, and there are squatters in her house. She doesn't understand why. Basically, this young man named Aoi was taken by a yokai as a child to kind of care for and take care of the house. So it's about Himari and Aoi kind of figuring out what needs to happen with Momochi House and how they can be together, because there are reasons why they shouldn't, and all sorts of other things. I don't want to spoil the series for you. But this ending really made me happy because it could have ended a couple of different ways. I did not see this one coming at all, and I really love how it wrapped up. It does have that HEA feel to it, but there's a trope that got thrown in there that made it work really well for me and ends up landing in another trope that I really love. But if I tell you said tropes, like, it's going to spoil the end, so I can't. But just trust me on this one, it is really, really fun. And then last but not least for this recommendation video, I'm going to talk about Dark Song by Christine Feehan. So this book in and of itself is very unique for paranormals in this Carpathian series. We are dealing with a woman who has very severe trauma and anxiety from being held captive for hundreds of years by this really bad vampire. Anyways, she's been healing in the soil because they are of the earth for a long time. It's been like a month or so. But while she's in the ground, this man named Pharaoh realizes that she is his life mate. So he's giving her every reason to come out of the soil and live. He helps build her up. He helps her build back her strength to fight back, and that she is not controlled by this vampire anymore, and he's not going to do that, but he will give her whatever protection she feels like she needs. So he is the shield, and he plays kind of the heel and the bad guy to all their friends, while she comes out of this being possessed mentality and starts to gain her own strength and come into herself. And it's a really beautiful book. But the way this ending comes about stood out to me for the Carpathian series in particular. Again, it's hard to talk about the specifics of the endings because I don't want to spoil it. It's part of what made this book so good. And granted, this is pretty deep in the Carpathian series. So if you need an entry point in the later series, I would start with like Dark Carousel, because that kind of opens up this area where we're meeting up with a bunch of people right now. So that's probably the entry point if you want to enter later in the series, because some of the early ones have some very dated of their time kind of tropes, so might not get along with those. But I do strongly recommend getting into the later books. The heroes are much more alpha mellow than just alpha, and I love them for that. And it's great. So thank you again to Heather for inviting me along on this collab. Again, remember, she's up in the cards and down below. Make sure you go give her a follow and go check out her video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.